Hey guys, tonight we drift gently across a world far, far from Earth, Europa, one of Jupiter's icy moons, where the moonlight doesn't just glow, it performs a delicate silver dance. Picture yourself standing on a vast, frozen ocean crust, stretching endlessly under a soft, pale sky lit by the faint glow of Jupiter's swirling bands. The surface beneath your feet sparkles like crushed diamonds caught in a slow ballet, shimmering under that strange, distant light. It's peaceful, but let's be honest, you probably won't survive this without at least a heat suit. Maybe a nice warm blanket. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, if you feel like it, drop your location and local time in the comments below. I'd love to know who's joining me on this cosmic slow dance. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Europa's frozen surface is a marvel of quiet beauty and subtle motion. You stand on a crust of ice so thick it might be miles deep. But this isn't solid, static ice like your freezer back home. It's a living, shifting skin, cracked and grooved by forces that tug on it every hour. Scientists still wonder exactly how thick this ice shell is. Some say it's a few miles deep, others suggest it's thinner in places, flexing and bending like a slow-moving glacier. What you see here is a surface made almost entirely of water ice, so pure and bright that it reflects almost all the sunlight falling on it, giving Europa its famous shining appearance. The moonlight here is not just reflected sunlight, it's a soft, silvery glow bouncing off the icy plains and distant ridges, creating a constant shimmer. You notice how the light catches on tiny ice crystals, each one like a tiny prism scattering faint rainbows, only far colder and more delicate. Imagine if Earth's snow could sparkle with an almost magical shimmer, as if the moon itself was performing a slow dance just for you. Europa's day is about 3-5 Earth days long, which means the light shifts slowly, creeping across the horizon like a lazy spotlight. The light you bathed in is tinted faintly blue-white, thanks to the way the ice filters and scatters the light. It's soothing, almost hypnotic. You can feel the chill in the air. Europa's surface temperature dips far below freezing, hovering near -160 degrees Celsius. No surprise there, but strangely enough, you don't feel frightened. This moon invites you to slow down, to watch and wait. The very idea of a moon this cold and distant having a daily dance of light is a bit of a sci-fi classic. Remember how many times the shimmering ice plains of Europa have been the setting for mysterious adventures and quiet alien moments. Yet here you are, just you and the moonlight, the vast frozen ocean stretching out before you, waiting for you to notice the details, the subtle shifts, the slow shimmering. But here's a question scientists keep circling around: could life exist in the depths beneath this frozen crust? We'll get there soon. For now, just breathe in the cold, crisp air, listen to the whisper of ice crystals brushing gently in the slow breeze, and let yourself be carried by Europa's silvery moonlight dance. You find a smooth spot to settle, and as your eyes adjust, you start to see the ice not as lifeless but almost breathing, tiny fissures opening and closing, ice plates gently nudging each other. It's a slow, unhurried dance, one you can watch without rush, without noise, just the soft glitter and a sense of endless calm. And hey, here's a little cosmic joke for you. Why did the alien refuse to leave Europa? Because it couldn't find a place with better chill vibes. Yeah, I know, terrible, but in this quiet place, even bad jokes seem to echo softly, like a friendly whisper. So, here you are, on Europa, wrapped in moonlight, the stage set for a slow-paced story that will take you deeper, under the ice, and into the mysteries waiting beneath that shimmering surface. As you rise from your quiet spot on the ice, your breath forks softly in the frigid air. The ground beneath your feet, though solid, is far from still. Europa's surface moves in slow, mesmerizing tides, not of water, but of ice. You're stepping onto a frozen ocean whose rhythms are controlled by the gravitational pull of the giant planet looming overhead, Jupiter. Jupiter's gravity isn't just a force pulling the moon along in its orbit, it's a powerful sculptor, tugging at Europa's icy shell with a gentle but relentless rhythm. This tidal flexing causes the surface ice to crack and shift in a slow, dance-like movement. A bit like how the ocean tides pull water on Earth, but stretched into a frozen, glacial ballet. You notice how large plates of ice seem to slide past one another, opening deep fissures known as linnae, dark, mysterious streaks that spit about across the moon's surface. It's a science fiction trope turned scientific fact, the idea of tidal forces shaping a world's surface. You might recall how many sci-fi stories use tidal heating to explain hidden oceans beneath icy moons. But here on Europa, it's more than just a story, it's the silent heartbeat of the moon's slow dance. You find yourself wondering how long these ice plates have been drifting, sometimes grinding gently against each other, sometimes cracking with a faint snap you can almost hear in the stillness. Scientists think these shifts may cause occasional geysers of water vapor to erupt through cracks, venting plumes into space. Imagine, hidden beneath your feet, a vast ocean swelling and pulsing, alive with energy, despite the frozen exterior. Here's a quirky detail: because the ice moves and shifts so slowly, some areas of the surface are constantly renewing themselves, making Europa one of the youngest surfaces in the solar system. That means meteoroid scars and space dust don't linger long here. Instead, the ice surface seems to self-heal, smoothing out like a cosmic ice rink that's always resurfaced. You step closer to one of these fissures, peering into the shadowy cracks. You wonder, could life cling to the edges here? Scientists are fascinated by the possibility that these cracks might be thin enough to let nutrients from the ocean below mix with the surface, creating a habitable zone where microbial life might thrive. Remember that idea of tidal heating? It's what keeps Europa's hidden ocean from freezing solid, a constant source of warmth under the ice, like a slow-burning ember beneath a snowy blanket. And it's this very movement, this subtle dance of ice tides, that gives Europa its unique character, a frozen moon that's never truly still. Here's a thought: if you were an alien living on Europa, how would you adapt to this slow-shifting landscape? Would your footprints stretch and blur as the ice plates moved beneath you? Would you learn to read the ice tides like a calendar, marking time by their patterns? As you walk, you hear a faint creaking, a soft groan from the ice far below, a reminder that this frozen dance is alive. That subtle music of ice shifting, bending and flexing is like Europa's heartbeat, slow, steady, and oddly comforting. And if you're feeling lonely out here, just remember you're sharing this slow dance with the biggest gas giant in the solar system, Jupiter, silently watching from above, its vast swirling storms and lightning-filled clouds adding a faint glow to Europa's silver moonlight. One last joke before you move on: why don't aliens ever get lost on Europa? Because the ice always gives them a slip of the way. Classic, I know, but somehow fitting for this place where everything glides gently, slowly, like a cosmic waltz. The tidal ice dance continues around you, a hypnotic rhythm that beckons you deeper into the story of Europa's strange, shimmering world. The ice beneath your feet sighs quietly as you continue walking. It's not a sound in the usual sense, there's no air here to carry it, but more of a subtle vibration, a gentle pressure that hums through your boots like a song remembered in the bones. You pause and kneel, placing your gloved hand against the surface, and that's when you feel it, a faint pulse, not mechanical, not artificial, something deeper, something vast. This is the breath of Europa's hidden ocean. Beneath this shell of ice lies a saltwater sea that scientists believe may contain twice as much water as all of Earth's oceans combined. It doesn't ripple or splash like the waves you're used to. Instead, it churns slowly in darkness, warmed by the tidal heating from Jupiter's gravitational tug. This invisible ocean doesn't see the stars, doesn't feel the wind, yet it moves, it sighs, it breathes. You try to imagine it not with the quick cuts of a sci-fi action movie, but with the long, deliberate sweep of an underwater dream. Massive caverns where currents drift lazily past mineral-rich vents, columns of warm water rising silently into the darkness. Here, in this alien sea, life might not just be possible, it might be inevitable. And this leads to one of science's most delicious speculative questions: if life exists in Europa's ocean, would we even recognize it as life? On Earth, deep-sea organisms live in utter darkness, thriving around hydrothermal vents using chemosynthesis rather than photosynthesis. So imagine what Europa might offer: perhaps not fish or squid, but colonies of warm-blooded slime, elegant tubes of living mineral, or jelly-like creatures that pulse to a rhythm only Europa understands. Here's the sci-fi trope sneaking in: the hidden ocean as the cradle of life. It's been in stories for decades, from Arthur C. Clarke to more obscure space operas. Europa's ocean is the galactic womb we keep returning to, and now here you are, standing just above it. You picture what it must be like in the ocean right now, lightless, soundless, a place where pressure could crush a submarine, yet life may drift gently like a whisper. Imagine a creature as wide as a city block, floating upside down beneath the ice, its underbelly brushing the frozen ceiling like fingers seeking contact. It doesn't think the way you do, it dreams in chemical pulses, speaks in vibrations. Maybe it dreams of you. Quirky detail time. Some researchers theorize that plumes erupting from Europa's surface spotted by telescopes and flyby missions could be samples of that ocean, flung briefly into space. It's like the moon is sneezing out pieces of its deepest secret, leaving them suspended in the void for us to catch. So far, we haven't gotten a conclusive taste, but one day, a robot might drift through one of those plumes and find the equivalent of alien plankton. Still, as you continue your moonlight walk, your thoughts drift. You're starting to feel it, not fatigue, exactly, but that slow unwinding of tension that happens when nothing rushes you, nothing pushes you forward. It's as if Europa's own rhythm is seasoning with your heartbeat. You lie back for a moment on the cold surface, your suit insulating you from the worst of it, and stare up. Jupiter looms above, painted in oranges and creams, its storms caught mid-spin. You trace the lines of its great red spot, a storm large enough to swallow Earth whole, and wonder what it must look like from beneath Europa's ice. Do the creatures see Jupiter's glow as some unreachable god light? Do they worship it in instinct, or ignore it entirely? Scientists still debate whether the ocean is uniform or layered, whether thick slush separates the sea from the crust, or whether pockets of water rise close enough to touch the ice. It's all guesswork, beautiful and maddening. For now, all you can do is listen, sense and dream. Another joke, because you deserve a smile right now. What do Europa's ocean creatures do for fun? They go with the flow. Yeah, they're not comedians, but hey, they're chill. You close your eyes, letting the ice cradle you, feeling the hum of the ocean's breath below. It's not a lullaby, not exactly, more like a slow exhale from a planet that's always been waiting for someone, maybe you, to stop long enough to notice. You rise slowly, brushing imaginary frost from your suit, not because you need to, but because the motion feels right, like you're mimicking some long-lost explorer. And maybe you are. After all, the place you're standing on has likely never felt the presence of a living soul. At least, not one like you. Ahead, the ice takes on a new shape, no longer flat and featureless. It rises into graceful arches and looping ridges, frozen waves captured mid-roll, as if Europa once surged like an ocean and then paused forever. These formations are called penitents, though no one's sure why. They are like fields of icy spires reaching toward the thin atmosphere, catching the glint of light like ancient cathedral windows. You walk among them, stepping carefully between slender columns that rise as tall as buildings and thin as needles. Some are so clear you can see light bending inside them, creating dazzling halos and mirrored horizons. The atmosphere is practically non-existent, but in this stillness, light plays by different rules. Europa's penitents likely formed through a slow process of sublimation. The sunlight causes surface ice to turn directly into vapor, leaving behind delicate sculptural remnants. That's the science, but from your perspective, it feels more like a forgotten forest, the kind elves might tiptoe through in zero gravity. As you pass, you start to notice patterns, maybe natural, maybe not. Some of the spires seem aligned, not perfectly, but enough to raise questions. Why do the tallest ones lean ever so slightly toward Jupiter? Why are some of them ringed at the base by curious black crystals? And here's a strange fringe theory for you. Some scientists believe these ridges and spires might host microbial communities clinging just beneath the surface, kept barely warm by the faint heat of Jupiter's radiation. Life in the shadows, life in the glitter. No proof yet, but if you squint long enough, your imagination fills the gaps. The sci-fi trope here is an old favorite: ancient, natural formations that might not be natural at all. Maybe they are messages, maybe they are homes, or maybe Europa just has a flair for dramatic architecture. You run your fingers over one of the ice towers, and for a second, your suit's sensors pick up a faint vibration, not enough to be a quake, just a tremble. Like something breathing beneath you, dreaming of the surface. A chuckle slips out of you, soft and warm in the silence. What do Europa's architects use for tools? As chisels and moonlight? Of course they do. You keep walking, weaving through the forest of ice, slowly heading toward a light you don't remember seeing before. It flickers just slightly, faint, greenish, and definitely not sunlight. But we'll get to that. The greenish glow pulses again, subtle but real. You pause at the edge of a basin, shallow but wide, the ice forming a perfect natural amphitheater. The light appears to be coming from beneath the surface, refracted and ghostly, like the moon itself has a heartbeat. You descend into the basin cautiously, your boots crunching softly on a layer of hoarfrost. In the center, there's a dome, smooth, almost perfectly hemispherical, no more than a few meters across. The glow emanates from within, diffused through translucent ice. You crouch beside it, tap gently. The sound is dulled, swallowed by layers of crystalline silence, but the glow responds, a ripple across the dome, like a pulse. It feels curious, speculative. Question time: is this a natural phenomenon? A mineral reacting to thermal gradients? Or is it something left behind? A probe, an egg, a lantern? Europa doesn't tell, not yet. The glow has an oddly biological rhythm, like phosphorescent plankton. It's not bright enough to see by, but it's persistent. Just watching it calms you, makes your thoughts stretch out like lazy cats in the sun. If it's trying to communicate, it's doing it with the patience of glaciers. There's a known trope in deep space fiction: alien tech disguised as geology, and standing here, with this gentle pulse of emerald under your glove, it feels entirely plausible. Maybe it's a beacon for creatures that navigate by heat or light. Maybe it's nothing more than a mineral deposit warmed by a nearby crack in the crust, but your instincts lean toward mystery, and then you notice the rhythm matches something else: your own breathing. Slow inhale, glow, exhale, fade. Coincidence? Probably. Possibly, but it's just the kind of thing that gets filed under Europa anomalies by bored researchers and obsessed archivists. Let's throw in a fringe world-building detail. Europa's ice contains traces of magnesium sulfate, essentially bitter Epsom salts. On Earth, that's something you toss into a bath to relax all muscles. Here, it gives the ice a curious mineral taste, or so the first probe claimed before shorting out in a dramatic but not especially helpful way. You settle beside the glowing dome. You're not tired exactly, but you could sit here for a long, long while. Time has slowed, not frozen, but softened. It stretches between moments like a snowflake melting in reverse, and because every good sci-fi journey needs a companion, you imagine what might lie down there, beneath the dome. A kind of ice squid, a sentient fluid that communicates via thermal wave, maybe just a colony of microscopic whisperers, too small to see but smart enough to recognize a visitor. You don't knock, that would be rude, but you do hum, just under your breath. Something tuneless. The dome flickers once in reply, or maybe that was your imagination sissening with the pulse. Either way, you smile. Last bad joke of the section. I promise. Why was the European light late for work? It got stuck in a deep freeze. Hey, if you're groaning, that means you're still awake. For now, the glow continues, the moon breathes, and your journey into Europa's gentle mysteries has only just begun. You leave the glowing dome behind, but it doesn't really leave you. That quiet, rhythmic pulse seems to echo in your thoughts now, like a song you heard once in a dream. The trail ahead is smoother, a broad plain of windswept frost that gleams under the soft light of Jupiter's reflected gaze. It's peaceful, too peaceful, until you see the footprints. They aren't yours. That much is clear. The shape is wrong, wider, flatter, almost fractal in nature, like someone or something walked using more than 5 limbs, or none at all. The impressions are deep, though shallow enough that whatever made them wasn't heavy, and they shimmer, not reflectively, but bioluminescently, like the footprints themselves are producing a faint, bluish glow. You follow them, because of course you do. There's a classic trope unfolding here: the inexplicable trail that leads you deeper into mystery. Except this one feels less ominous and more curious. The prints wind gently through the frost field, not in a straight line, but in an elegant spiral, as if the traveler moved not with urgency, but in the middle of a dance. The trail leads you to a rise, not a hill. Exactly, more like a slow swelling in the ice. From the top, you look out over a wide expanse of ridged terrain, and there, scattered across the surface like misplaced constellations, are more glowing trails, spiral swirls, concentric loops. They don't intersect. They never touch, like dozens of choreographed dances, each sacred to its own performer. And here comes your quirky sci-fi detail. There's a theory that Europa's subsurface ocean, moving slowly under tidal stress, could cause the ice above to shift in predictable patterns. Some have proposed that native life, if it exists, might navigate, or even communicate using these stress patterns. Like reading Braille on a planetary scale, you try to picture that creatures who feel vibrations through the ice as language. Their footprints glow not because they want to be seen, but because they are part of a code, a shared story retold in dance. The moon's daily rhythm becomes a choreography, and that's when you realize where you are. You're standing in what can only be described as a ballroom, not in the traditional sense. There are no chandeliers, no velvet curtains, no awkward punch bowls, but in the center of this ice well, surrounded by these glowing, spiraling trails, you feel it. This space is meant for motion. The air or the absence of it carries a reverence, like you've stumbled onto the aftermath of something sacred. A daily dance performed not for spectacle, but survival, or remembrance. Scientists still wonder if Europa's crust shifts more than we think. Some models suggest massive surface displacement every few decades, enough to erase most signs of activity. But what if these patterns are left purposefully? Again and again, a ritual, continually rewritten on a canvas of ice. You take one step into the pattern and immediately feel silly. What are you doing? This isn't your story. But then again, you're here, aren't you? You mimic the nearest spiral, stepping lightly along its glowing path. It's not dancing, exactly, more like moving with intention, a meditative pace. You find your own rhythm, your boots clicking softly, your shadow stretching long and blue. The silence joins you, and for a while, it feels like you're not alone, not watched, not followed, just welcomed. You wonder if the original dancers ever come back, or if this is their offering left for the ice, for Jupiter, for dreamers like you. The sci-fi twist: some stories speculate that sentient life might evolve without bodies, not as spirits, but as patterns, beings of geometry, existing only in trails and resonance, their presence as fleeting as a footprint on a sunlit glacier. You pause in the center of the spiral and look up at Jupiter, still watching, still spinning. Here comes a new joke: why don't Europeans run marathons? Because their trails always loop back. Terrible, but the spiral approves. You're pretty sure it glows a little brighter after that one. You take one last breath and step back from the dance. The pattern remains undisturbed, and somehow, so do you. The silence shifts again, not louder, not urgent, just deeper, like a quiet inhale after a long-held breath, the kind of pause that suggests the world beneath your feet is listening, or waiting. You start walking again, drifting further from the spiral ballroom. And the ice begins to change under your boots. It's no longer smooth or spired, it develops fine ridges, like wrinkles or fossilized ripples. They pulse faintly with heat, which is impossible. But then again, so is most of what you've seen tonight. These aren't just cracks or tectonic scars. These are living seams, conduits that connect the surface to the warm ocean below. Science has a name for them: chaos terrain. They form when pockets of liquid water push up, melt the surface from underneath, then refreeze in chaotic patterns. The result? An ice field that looks like shattered glass mid-mend, all wedges and tilts and light-catching fractures. But that's the textbook version. What you're seeing doesn't feel chaotic, it feels organized. A soft, golden mist rises from one of the cracks. It doesn't billow or swirl, just lifts slowly, as if being exhaled by the moon itself. You approach, sensors pinging softly, and notice a texture in the mist, filaments, threads like spores, except luminous. You reach out, instinctively, and the particles react, forming loose coils and helix shapes in the air. A fringe idea flashes in your mind: what if Europa's life never left the ocean, but learned to communicate with the surface, not through screams or signals, but through bioluminescence, vapors, coated clouds released into the thin atmosphere, each one a thought, a greeting, a long-distance lullaby. The sci-fi trope here is simple life that is intelligent, but not central nervous system based, not brains or circuits, but communication through chemistry, cloud beings, whisper gas. Scientists still debate whether Europa vents more than water vapor. Some theories suggest complex organics, amino acids, even precursors to rain, might be hidden in those plumes, but none of them explain the delicate, spiraling patterns the mist is forming in front of you. One curl looks like a nautilus shell, another like a snowflake melting in reverse. You hold still, watching, breath fogging your visor. The shapes keep changing, never repeating. It's hypnotic. And then maybe because you're sleep deprived, maybe because you're Europa drunk, you try to talk to it. You whisper something, anything, your name. A joke, the lyrics to a song you only half remember. The mist doesn't reply in words, of course, but one of the curls brightens faintly, just one, as if saying, heard you, carry on. You're not hallucinating, probably. Your senses catch faint traces of hydrogen peroxide, oxygen, and some unidentifiable carbon-based compound. Nothing toxic, but definitely odd. The mist is beginning to thin, drifting higher until it disappears entirely into the black sky. You stare after it, trying to imagine a creature that speaks in evaporation. You mark the spot in your memory, Europa's air poetry zone. Future explorers will probably give it a more serious name, like Plume Cluster Theta, but you'll always think of it as the place where the moon whispered back, there's a trail leading away, not footprints this time, but a sinuous groove in the ice, as though something slithered here, melted through, then refroze. Another mystery, another invitation. As you follow the trail, you can't help but hum again, soft and off-key. It's a tune you don't remember learning, but your feet keep time with it. Maybe it's something the mist left behind. Here comes your required terrible joke. Why did the Europa fob refuse to date anyone? It said, I need my space. Rimshot. You laugh, alone, but not lonely. The ice crackles underfoot in a way that feels approving. Ahead, something rises from the ice, a structure, round, familiar in its alliances, and even from this distance, you can tell it's waiting, but let's not rush it. The structure comes into view slowly, as if the ice itself is introducing it to you in stages. First, a low dome, translucent, not quite symmetrical, then, gently curving ribs arching over it, like the bones of some ancient sea creature half buried in frost. Finally, a soft, internal light reveals itself, pale green, pulsing once every few seconds, like a slow heartbeat trying not to wake the neighbors. You pause at the edge. This place doesn't feel abandoned, exactly, it feels patient, like it's been waiting not for you specifically, but for someone to notice it again. The surface of the dome is covered in looping script, not writing in any human sense, no letters, no glyphs, just soft lines etched into the ice like breath trails on a window, spiraling outward in irregular fractals. You lean closer. The lines shift under your gaze, not move, exactly, but your mind can't hold them still. It's like trying to remember a dream while you're still dreaming. Here comes your known sci-fi trope, the alien archive disguised as a living structure, except this isn't a data vault or storage facility. This is more like a greenhouse, or a nursery. You step inside, and the temperature rises just slightly, enough to fog your visor, enough to feel like breath. The interior is surprisingly vast, curved walls with alcoves, raised platforms, suspended orbs hovering midair, each one glowing with a gentle hue: amber, jade, lavender. The air, or lack thereof, seems to hum softly, as if tuned to a lullaby you don't recognize. Then you notice the roots. Yes, roots. They twist down from the ceiling and up through the floor, intertwining like veins. pale, luminous, and pulsating faintly. They don't connect to anything you'd call a plant. Instead, they meet at a central basin, shallow, circular, filled with a liquid that looks like silver but ripples like mercury. You approach the basin slowly. It doesn't feel dangerous. It feels sacred. Scientists have speculated for decades about sentient plant analogues, life forms that don't move, don't hunt, but perceive time and space in slow, root-deep waves. Maybe this place was grown, not built. Maybe this entire structure is a living being or a system of them dreaming quietly in their nutrient bath. Sharing slow thoughts through the roots, you dip one gloved finger into the silver liquid. It's warm. Instantly, the orbs overhead flicker, the roots tense and release, like they are stretching. The lines on the wall shimmer into new shapes, briefly forming a symbol that almost resembles a musical note. If a musical note had feelings, the room seems to exhale. You say the only thing that comes to mind, hello. Nothing responds, but the light turns green. Speculative question time. What if the plants here are memory archivists, and you're the first new memory they've absorbed in centuries? Your presence, your breath, your silly joke about space fog, maybe it's all being recorded in chlorophyll somewhere, leafed into a moon-sized library of moments. You kneel beside the basin and study your reflection. It warps and drifts like oil in water. But you see something odd, not your face, but a dozen faces, elongated, clustered, moving in rhythm, not human, not even humanoid, just faces that belong here. They vanish as quickly as they appear, leaving behind the impression of having been watched or welcomed. Here's your quirky sci-fi detail. These plant-like entities might not be plants at all, but frozen water-based neurons, engineered over millennia to store experience, not in circuits or chemicals, but in the shape of their roots and the rhythm of their light. Think botanical hard drives that dream. You sit on a ledge, watching the room breathe. Do you guys dance? You whisper. The roots twitch once, like a shrug. Fair. The air begins to dim gently. Orbs blink slower. The green light fades to blue. You feel sleepy. Which is odd, considering your suit is regulating everything. Or maybe not that odd. This room is clearly calibrated to lull something into rest. It might be the first true lullaby room you've ever encountered, designed not for sleep as escape, but sleep as communion. And of course, it wouldn't be a proper bedtime sci-fi trip without another truly awful joke. Why don't alien greenhouses throw parties? Because they are afraid someone might leave early. You smile to yourself. The nearest orb brightens just slightly. Either it appreciated the joke or it's alerting security. You decide to interpret it as applause. As you rise, you notice a small passage at the back of the room. It's narrower, sloping downward, lit with the same green-blue hue. The roots don't follow you there. It's a different zone now, less botanical, more ritualistic. And whatever it's hiding, it hasn't been touched in a long time. You stoop slightly to pass through the narrow arch. It hums as you do, like a singing bowl brushed by an unseen hand. The temperature shifts again, cooler, but not uncomfortable, fresher, like mountain air filtered through an alien glacier. The corridor walls narrow, but they pulse with the same bioluminescence as the greenhouse orbs, only now it's arranged in long lines and repeating curves. It reminds you of music notation, but for a species that uses wavelengths instead of instruments. Maybe these walls aren't decorative. Maybe they are humming softly to keep rhythm for whatever lives, or once lived, beyond them. Then you reach the chamber. It opens suddenly, like stepping through a throat into a cathedral carved from ice. The ceiling arcs high above you, a perfect dome that reflects every sound you make. Only slower and softer. like the room is thinking about your words before echoing them back. At its center is a low platform, on it 8 identical structures. They are crystalline, like chairs, but not for sitting, more like docking, nesting. They have indents shaped like teardrops and tall spines that rise behind each one, trailing thin, metallic vines up into the dome above. And here's your sci-fi trope: ritual spaces built by long-gone civilizations, still functioning for reasons no one remembers. The kind of places where silence isn't absence, it's protocol. You circle the platform, careful not to touch anything. Each crystalline form has a faint glow inside, not power exactly, but persistence, as if it's holding on to the last whisper of something deeply personal. Above, you spot a hollow in the ceiling directly over the platform. You step beneath it, and a soft vibration tickles your skull. Not sound, not quiet, more like a memory trying to remember itself. Suddenly, your visor flickers just once, and in that moment, you see a vision, not visual, but emotional, a gathering, not of people, but presences. Entities clustering in this very room, not in celebration, but in mourning. The crystals weren't seats, they were memory vessels, stations in a final ritual where thoughts were offered, condensed, stored, maybe even returned to the source ocean beneath Europa's crust. The vines above shimmer slightly. They are not cables, they're nerves, artificial or grown. This chamber is a dream recorder, and the 8 vessels are its storytellers. Maybe they returned here each cycle, not to sleep, but to release what they'd seen, felt, loved. Fringe detail time. Europa's ancient species may have practiced a form of group dreaming as cultural record-keeping. No books, no data pads, just synchronized REM cycles tuned to the moon's tidal frequencies, imprinted into crystalline roots, then shared through contact with structures like this one. You wonder if the moon dance, the one you saw earlier, was a way of priming that collective memory, a prelude to dreaming, dancing as an encryption key. You place your hand near one of the vessels, nothing touches you, and yet, something inside your mind leans slightly, like a door creaking open in a familiar childhood house. A sound, a smell, not yours. You blink, and for a half second, you're underwater. You feel the pressure, the joy, a sense of we so overwhelming that I feel silly. Then it's gone. Your senses catch no anomalies, of course, just a faint electrochemical charge from the vessel. Static, or story, speculative question time. What if these vessels still work, and they are waiting for new minds, yours included, to join their dreaming, not uploading, not downloading, just floating in collective thought? You back away gently, respectfully. This isn't your memory to tamper with. You're just a passerby, a tourist at a psychic museum with no gift shop. Here comes your joke. Why don't Europa dream vessels host improv nights? Because every thought already came pre-scripted by ancestral telepathy. You chuckle alone. It echoes back, softer, kinder. As you exit the chamber, the light dims slightly behind you, like someone pulling a curtain, not shutting you out, just preserving the mood. You re-enter the outer passage and find a different path waiting. One you hadn't seen before. It slopes upward toward a ridge you glimpsed earlier from the ice plains. Your boots crunch quietly as you climb. You glance back once. The chamber is gone. No door, no trace. Maybe it was never meant to stay still. You crest the rise, and the stars come back into view like a sigh of relief. And below them, a shallow basin, surrounded by towers of frost that seem sculpted, not by weather, by choice. The basin before you glows faintly, like a sleeping lake dreaming under stars. It isn't water, not in the way Earth knows it. This is Europa, after all. Here, liquids obey different rules, shaped by pressure and salinity and patience. You kneel at the edge and watch as gentle ripples roll inward from every side, meeting at the center in soft collisions that never quite stop. The surrounding frost towers lean slightly, as if craning their long necks to witness what's happening below. They're irregular, some tall, some twisted, and many capped with crystal discs that catch and reflect the faint light. You think of sundials, or prayer flags frozen mid-twirl, or maybe wine chimes that have long since forgotten how to ring. You scan the basin's circumference and notice something subtle: indentations in the ice, rhythmic and precise. Dozens of them. They look like footprints, but too evenly spaced, more like the imprints of a species that didn't walk, but glided or drifted. A known sci-fi trope shuffles onto the stage here: ritual grounds built for planetary convergence ceremonies, the kind where species from various systems gather once every orbital alignment to exchange stories. Spores, or particularly rare cosmic cheeses, and this basin, it's a performance space. The thought hits you as you spot a raised ring at the basin's heart, a platform, barely visible beneath the liquid, just high enough to allow standing above the surface if someone or something rose from beneath it. Maybe this is the real moon dance floor. You take a breath and descend slowly toward the basin's edge. The ice beneath you feels unusually smooth, like it was shaped deliberately, not by wind or time, but by movement repeated. Graceful movement. You pause and raise a hand to your comms. Control, you say quietly. You're not gonna believe this, but I think I found the stage. No reply, of course. Signals still jammed by Europa's thick crust of indifference. You shrug and step out onto the edge. The frost doesn't crack. It yields slightly, like foam underfoot, then firms again. A dance floor with memory, built to forgive missteps. Quirky detail: incoming European ice isn't entirely solid. It holds microfilaments, natural elastic veins that adapt to pressure and movement. Ancient architects might have woven these properties into performance spaces so the ground itself responded to dance's rhythm. You move without thinking, guided by the strange pulse that's been slowly seasoning with your own breath. Step, shift, step again, and the basin responds. The ripples begin to echo your movements, not mirror them, harmonize with them. You step left, the waves spread right, meet, cancel. You spin once, and the central disc sends up a misty spiral that glows faintly lavender before fading into the air. You laugh quietly. Okay, now this is just showing off. Speculative question: what if the moon dance wasn't a performance at all, but a language, a way for Europa's inhabitants to communicate with the moon itself, a kind of planetary dialogue, conducted in step and gesture, readable only to those tuned to the deep rhythm of this ice-locked world? You keep moving, not gracefully. You're still in a clunky exploration suit, after all, but the floor doesn't mind. It adjusts, encourages. Maybe this was their tradition each night. Under the soft aura filtering through the ice above, they'd gather here and step slowly, sending gentle messages across the crust. Not words, not instructions, just presence. Here we are, still dancing, still dreaming. Then you pause, because the ripples are still moving. You haven't stepped for several seconds, but something beneath the surface is continuing the rhythm. It's not mimicking you. It's remembering you, replaying your steps back at you, slightly off tempo, like a duet between now and then. You kneel and touch the basin. A soft vibration travels up your arm, and then only for a second the mist from the center rises again. But this time, it forms a shape, not solid, not clear, just a ghostly silhouette of something, slender, multi-limbed, tall, moving slowly, gracefully. Dancing, your breath catches, not in fear, In awe, the figure drifts forward, mimicking your last movements, then pauses. The mist dissipates, gone. Your first instinct is to bow, like at the end of a performance. So you do. The frost towers shimmer ever so slightly in response. Another joke for the archives. What do Europeans say after a successful ritual dance? Break a fin. You chuckle into your mic. Somewhere, surely, a Miss Being is groaning. You rise and take one last look at the basin. You don't know who they were, what they meant. Whether they're gone, or just sleeping deep beneath the ice. But you know this: they danced every night, and the moon remembered. The floor hums softly beneath you, as if pleased, and far in the distance, down a new ridge you haven't yet seen, a pale light pulses, slow and steady, beckoning. You follow the ridge, boots crunching in an oddly rhythmic way, now your steps unconsciously shaped by the basin's memory. The pulse ahead continues, faint but persistent, like a distant heartbeat under glass. The terrain here feels different, less wild, more considered. Smooth curves of ice curl around you like walls designed by a species allergic to straight lines. You spot embedded lines along the ridges, not carvings, but tiny clusters of semi-translucent hexagons that react slightly to your movement, dimming or flaring as you pass. Like you're being read, or welcomed, or catalogued, and then you see it. A tower. It leans slightly, like a candle just before it melts. Its surface glimmers with embedded crystal and what looks like looping metallic script, not written language, more like sound frozen in three-dimensional loops. Like the waveform of a lullaby preserved in platinum. You approach, and the pulse strengthens, not louder, not brighter, just closer. It's not coming from the tower, it is the tower. You step around its base and find a narrow archway. Of course there's no door, nothing ever needs one here. Europa doesn't keep secrets. It sings them slowly until you listen. Inside, the air, or whatever approximation of it this moon allows, feels thicker, more mineral, almost fizzy. Your visor translates the composition: inert gas, trace ammonia, safe in short bursts. Possibly ceremonial, possibly aromatic, possibly both. Classic sci-fi trope: time alien signal towers that are also temples, also memories, also machines, multi-purpose structures left behind by beings too poetic to separate their technology from their theology. You ascend a slow spiral staircase, or rather, a ramp that curves upward inside the tower. The walls pulse slightly with your ascent, the way a seashell amplifies ocean sound if you listen close enough. About halfway up, you stop, because you've reached a chamber. It's small, circular, and filled with orbs. Some hang from delicate thread-like structures above, others are nestled in nooks along the wall. One sits floating in midair, slowly rotating, a globe of something viscous and glowing. Your suit pings softly. The material matches that of the dream vessel's crystallized memory gel. But this seems curated, organized, a fringe alien detail to log here. Europa's former inhabitants may have practiced ambient archiving, where key emotions, memories, or decisions were recorded not in language but in atmospheric tension, chemically imprinted into semi-sentient gel, and left to float for anyone attuned enough to feel. You stand still. The orb closest to you vibrates slightly, then splits open, not violently, just like an orange offering a slice. From it spills music, low, oceanic chords and gentle bell tones, layered beneath what sounds like multiple voices humming in harmony. You don't understand the notes, but you understand the mood. A farewell. You turn slowly. Each orb in this room is a goodbye, not just from one individual to another, but from a whole people to everything. One orb nearby flares with light and shows you a moving image just for a moment. Underwater beings, many-limbed, gently spiraling through moonlit currents. They're not dying, they're departing, voluntarily, retreating somewhere deeper, and in the center of the room, on a pedestal shaped like a coiled wave, rests a small cube crystalline. About the size of a fist. You reach toward it, and your visor displays a translation overlay, auto-triggered by your proximity. One word, Tidalef. You blink. Not a name, not exactly. A species, a concept, a place. Then the pulse returns closer now, coming from the cube. You lift it gently. It's warm. Speculative question time. What if Europa's most advanced form of communication was neither sound nor light, but warmth, heat transferred skin to skin, molecule to molecule, whispering thermal dialect only understood through direct contact? You hold the cube a moment longer, and it vibrates in your palm, a short rhythm, 3 soft pulses, one long one, then silence. You smile. It's probably a greeting, or a joke, or both. So here's yours. Why did the sentient gel blob refuse to leave Europa? Because it couldn't handle the emotional baggage fees. Even the tower seems to chuckle, a soft tremor tickling the floor under your boots. As you descend, the orbs dim behind you, content to rest again. You step back out into the glimmering ridge light, now low on the horizon. A long, soft dusk that doesn't darken, just blows the edges. You tuck the cube away. The pulse hums now from your suit pocket, like a pocket watch tuned to a deeper time. And below, at the base of the ridge, you finally see it, the Grand Canal, not water, not anymore, but a ribbon of smoothed black ice stretching for kilometers, flanked by arching structures that lean in like spectators. It glows from beneath with blue light, slow and hypnotic, shifting like music in visual form. Another stage, another ritual, or maybe a transportation system. Powered not by combustion or magnetism, but memory. You step carefully down the slope, drawn toward the Grand Canal like a moon caught in orbit. It's not a steep descent, more of a guided slide, the kind children might dream about but engineers would scratch their heads over. No handrails, no warnings, just intuition and softly glowing guide lights embedded in the ice like breadcrumbs for the curious. The canal opens before you like a frozen river of starlight. The surface is smooth, almost mirror-like, but you can just barely detect slow, looping movements beneath swirls of deeper blue light swimming lazily under the crust. They're not random. You squint. They're shapes, forming and reforming, spirals, arcs, fractal blooms, like a kaleidoscope made of ocean thought. Classic sci-fi trope unlocked, an alien transportation system where travel isn't by distance, but resonance, matching the mood or intent of the traveler. Not where you want to go, but where you need to be. The difference, you suppose, is important. You kneel near the edge and press a gloved palm to the surface. It doesn't respond with cold, it responds with recognition. A slow hum builds beneath your hand, and the swirls below shift in color from blue to green to a gentle amber. Not a command, but a suggestion. You stand and the canal opens, not cracks, not mechanical movement. The top layer of ice simply softens, like warmed wax, parting just enough to reveal a narrow channel wide enough for a single occupant. Shallow as a meditation pool, you step in. The canal doesn't carry you like a river, it reads you, your weight, your breathing pattern, your internal rhythm. The cube in your pocket pulses once, and the canal responds. You begin to glide, not quickly. This isn't a chase scene. Think gondola ride powered by emotion, slow and winding. The banks pass by on either side, tall crystalline stalks that bend slightly as you drift past, like reeds bowing in acknowledgement. Along the banks, you spot stations or maybe shrines, each with a unique shape, a hollow ring. A low bench made of transparent bone, a coiled spiral, possibly resting points along an emotional journey, or symbolic checkpoints. You remember something from the tower, the way the memory orbs weren't just recordings, but transmissions, shared moments, anchors. And here's the twisty alien quirk: Europa's transportation was never about going somewhere. It was about letting the planet understand who you were, and then deciding where you should be, which is charming, and also mildly terrifying, especially if you were late to a moon wedding. But there's no rush now. The canal curves gently, glowing more brightly beneath you with every breath. You pass under a low bridge of ice, and something sprays upward in a fine mist scented faintly of mineral salt and anise. Your suit chirps chemical signature matches known European incense rituals. Possible link to mourning or celebration. Those two things are never far apart here, it seems. The canal banks begin to slope upward, and small structures emerge, domed huts, sealed and silent. You pass one and glimpse, through the frost, a low platform inside, covered in fine powder and marked with soft, symmetrical indentations, beds, or meditation spaces, or worms. The distinction blurs. Maybe the Europeans didn't rest on the surface, but with it forming connections during sleep. You slide gently to a stop. The canal decides you need a moment, and then you see it, a bloom. It rises slowly from the icy floor, a translucent plant, 3 meters high, unfurling petals made of frozen vapor. Each petal vibrates slightly in the European wind, producing a low harmonic tone that resonates in your chest. A sentient plant, maybe, or just a really thoughtful alarm clock. Let's call it what it is: the whisper blossom, a rare alien life form that thrives only in moonlight-filtered sub-zero conditions, and communicates via sustained harmonic bloom. You approach, cautiously. The blossom doesn't retreat. Instead, its center opens, revealing a basin filled with tiny luminous beads, like dewdrops from a star. You reach toward them, but don't touch. The petals pulse once in appreciation. Your suit suggests this might be a pollination mechanism or memory deposit system, one that accepts offerings of emotion in return for shared insight. You offer a word aloud, lonely. The basin glows faintly. One of the drops lifts, floats toward you, and melts on contact with your visor. You blink, and for a second, just a second, you are underwater, surrounded by flickering shadows. 100 beings spiral around you in a slow circle, singing with movement alone. You're not afraid, you're not lost, you're part of it. Then it's gone. You exhale slowly. Speculative question of the hour: what if sleep, not action, was the primary form of diplomacy here? A shared dream, negotiated nightly beneath the ice, where misunderstandings were resolved by collective dreaming. You return to the canal. It welcomes you back like a parent to a slightly wiser child. The glide resumes. You look up through the ice. Europa's night sky, filtered through frozen miles, gleams faintly with scattered stars and Saturn's pale bulk far off. You realize this isn't a journey outward, it's a journey inward, and something inside you is starting to shift. The next station approaches. It's different, not silent. You hear music. As you approach the next station, the music grows clearer. It isn't playing from speakers. There are no instruments, no performers in sight, but the sound is unmistakably deliberate, a melancholy, looping melody, as if composed by someone who's spent too much time underwater, thinking about the stars. It sounds like the memory of a lullaby, hummed long after the child has grown. The canal slows your glide, easing you up to the edge of a wide circular basin. The ice here is smooth, reflective, and dyed with soft pinks and violets from some unseen light source. The air vibrates faintly, like the inside of a cello. You step out of the canal and walk across a shallow slope toward the origin of the music, and there in the middle of the clearing sits a machine, or maybe an organism, it's hard to tell. Imagine a harpsichord made from coral and stardust. Its keys ripple like sea anemones, shifting gently with every note. Tubes rise from its core, spiraling into the air like elongated kelp fronds, exhaling vapor that glows with each chord, and seated at the edge of the machine is a replica of you, not exact, not threatening. It's like a blurred sketch of you drawn from memory. The stance is familiar, the proportions close, it turns as you approach, and though it has no face, the gesture feels unmistakably like a nod. Cue the sci-fi trope alien interfaces that generate a familiar form to avoid overwhelming the visitor. But this one feels less like a projection and more like a gift, an effort. The figure gestures for you to sit beside it. You do. The moment your suit touches the coral surface, the music shifts, not sharply, but it modulates, incorporating your presence. A new chord enters, something like a question. You place your hand on one of the ripple keys. The response is instant. A low hum echoes out, and you feel it more than hear it. In your bones, in your ribs. The melody now wraps around you, both the replica and the real, like two threads weaving a shared pattern. Your helmet, you display something new, a resonance map. Not language, not code, just layered waves that translate emotional tone into sound. You experiment pressing, releasing, listening. It's like playing a xylophone inside your own memory. The music answers your curiosity with curiosity of its own. You press a slow, descending line of keys. The lights dim slightly. In return, the choral machine generates an image, a projection, mid-air, hazy, dreamlike, a Eurasian dance perhaps, figures that move like mist, spiraling and intertwining in slow, deliberate loops. Not a performance, a ceremony. You realize you're seeing one of the daily moon dances, the rituals encoded into the title of your journey. It's not for entertainment, it's for remembering. These dances weren't watched, they were felt, and now, through this music, you're feeling one unfold inside you. Open speculative question: what if art, dance, music, sculpture was used on Europa not to express the self, but to store consensus memory? Not I felt this, but we agreed this was real. You and your replica sit in silence for a while, playing back and forth. No pressure, no final movement, just a meandering improvisation. Two shadows figuring each other out. The replica places a hand on its chest. A ripple of color spreads from the contact, soft indigo, like memory in twilight. Then it vanishes. No fanfare, no dramatic exit, just gently gone. You sit a moment longer. You've been speaking with the moon. You realize, not just Europa, but the idea of it, the residual empathy of a world still echoing with the presence of a long-gone species that couldn't bear to leave completely. You look down at the keys. One more note, you press it. The sound that emerges isn't a chord, it's a voice, yours, recorded back at the first ice shelf. During that brief moment of breathless wonder, the system caught it, replayed it, preserved it as if to say, we heard you. A final alien quirk. Tucked into this dreamy scene, the memory of sound on Europa does not decay over time. Instead, it is absorbed into the crust, ray emitted when triggered by matching emotional frequency. You step away from the machine, the music slows, becoming more ambient, less melodic, background texture, a soft shimmer in the distance. You return to the canal. As you re-enter, the glide resumes slower now, like the moon knows you're approaching something significant. The air grows thinner, cleaner, sharper. A transition. You crest a low hill, and there, nestled in a crater of pale ice and whispering wind, is the final site, an amphitheater. The amphitheater unfolds before you like a dream carved into ice and stone. It's vast yet intimate, circular, surrounded by tiered seats formed from frozen crystalline layers that shimmer faintly under Europa's dim sunlight. The structure seems impossibly old, worn smooth by countless cycles of moons and stars, yet impeccably maintained, a paradox only a moon like Europa could hold. You step down toward the center, your footsteps muffled by the soft layer of frost. The air here hums with a subtle vibration, a quiet reverberation that fills the space with an almost tangible presence. It's like stepping into the collective heartbeat of a vanished civilization. You glance upward. Above, the sky is a swelling tapestry of distant galaxies and Saturn's rings, their colors bleeding softly through the thin atmosphere. The view alone could lull anyone into serene reverie. In the center of the amphitheater lies a shallow pool of liquid water, a rarity on Europa's frozen surface. The water reflects the cosmos above, creating an illusion of infinite depth, a gateway between worlds. You lean over and dip your fingers in the liquid. Is cool but inviting, soothing like a balm for your travel-weary skin. The pool's surface begins to ripple, and shapes start to form. Faint outlines of the moon's former inhabitants emerge, light figures moving gracefully, their bodies shimmering with bioluminescence patterns. They dance not in haste, but with deliberate, flowing motions that mirror the ebb and flow of the tides. You realize this is the culmination of the daily moon dance, a ceremonial reenactment encoded in the water itself, a final, lasting tribute to a culture that spoke through movement and light. Here's your classic sci-fi trope moment: a civilization's memories preserved in holographic water, a living archive accessible through touch and observation. But Europa's version is more intimate, a blending of biology and technology, memory and ritual. You sit quietly on the edge, mesmerized. The dancers seem to acknowledge you, their forms rippling as if inviting you to join. You hesitate, then tentatively mimic their gestures. Your movements are clumsy but earnest. The holograms respond, their fluid forms adapting, encouraging. The amphitheater vibrates softly, the soundscape enveloping you in warmth and calm. You feel your breath slow, your heart sink with the gentle rhythm of the dance. It's an unspoken conversation, a shared language beyond words. Speculative question for the night: could such immersive memory archives serve as a new form of therapy, healing emotional wounds through embodied experience? Scientists still wonder if future humans might one day access ancestral memories through similar sensory engagements. As you rise, the holograms dissolve back into the water, leaving only faint glimmers. You look up once more at the rings of Saturn, their majestic bands casting a silvery glow across the amphitheater. The cold no longer feels biting, but embracing, a quiet companion on your journey through this frozen world of memories and dreams. You turn away from the pool, ready to complete your path back across the ridge, carrying the pulse of Europa's song within you. The final stretch back feels different, lighter, almost as if Europa itself is bidding you farewell with a gentle embrace. You glide once more through the canal, the icy walls glowing faintly, reflecting your tired but contented face. The whisper-blossoms sway softly nearby, their harmonic tones merging with the distant hum of the amphitheater's memories fading into silence. As you move, you reflect on the strange, beautiful customs you've witnessed tonight: the moon's slow dance beneath the stars, the choral music machine that played your very thoughts, and the holographic dances preserved in liquid memory. Each step, each sensation, has woven itself into the quiet fabric of your mind, an alien lullaby crafted to soothe and to dream. you remember the delicate balance of Europa's world, the interplay of ice and water, light and shadow, memory and silence, a place where communication flows in ripples and resonance, where connection transcends words, and where sleep might just be the universe's most profound language. The thought brings a smile. You probably won't survive the day after all this deep dreaming. But maybe that's the point. Your suit's system softly announced the approach to your starting point. The journey's end and the return to reality draw near, but you carry a piece of Europa's quiet wisdom within you, a gentle reminder that even in the coldest places, warmth can be found. You settle back into your pod, eyes growing heavy. The distant rings of Saturn fade from view, replaced by the soothing blackness behind your eyelids. Slow your breath, feel the pulse of the whisper blossom's song fade into a gentle hum. Let the memory of Europa's dance cradle you. You're home now, in sleep, in dream, in endless starlight.